All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to today's webinar. This is Katie over at Holganix. We are really grateful to have Linda from Real Green here with us. Thanks so much, Linda, for coming.
Oh, absolutely my pleasure. Looking forward to this.
Definitely. So for those of you guys that don't know Linda, she's been the marketing director for Real Green Systems since 2013. She has refreshed their brand as well as developed branding strategies for Real Green's newly emerging marketing division, Real Green Marketing. And prior to joining Real Green, Linda was marketing coordinator for the German automotive supplier, Tyson Krupp. I might be saying that wrong, Linda. I'm sorry.
It's ThyssenKrupp.
We're starting off this
Close.
webinar so great. and you were also and a show graphics architect and designer for General Motors Corporation. So thanks so much, Linda. Without further ado, why don't I just turn over this show to you?
Thanks, Katie, and thanks everyone for tuning in today. We're going to go through a lot of different companies. I didn't concentrate on lawn care because I think when you're branding, it's important to borrow from different industries, and that's exactly what we did when we rebranded Real Green. We didn't stick with just lawn care. We borrowed some of the best from all of the industries, so that's what we're going to go over today. And hopefully this guy on the left with 2 thumbs up wearing those silly glasses, hopefully that can be some of your customers at some point. So today we're going to go over, is branding important? And I'm going to answer that question right now. Yeah, it is. How is branding different from marketing? What does branding actually do? How do you create your own brand, which is why you tuned in today, and how to determine any brand equity. So is branding important? It definitely is, and it's important for small businesses as well as major corporations. In fact, many corporations now, any of big brands, they're trying to look smaller because there is not just an emerging trend, it's been emerging for quite a while now, but consumers want to deal with more independent brands. They want to deal locally. So some of these big brands I'm about to show you, they're huge, and they actually are striving to look small. The first one is Lush, and it's a cosmetic brand, and guys, don't roll your eyes, but this company is an international brand, and it's absolutely killing their competition. They have a very low-key logo. It's just Lush, fresh handmade cosmetics, and their brand is really unlike any makeup brand in the marketplace right now. You can walk into their store, it looks like you're walking into a bakery actually. Some of their products, they're very rough and handmade. They have this international reach, they're global. However, they have this really warm local approach to their marketing and their branding. They're not afraid to push the boundaries. They're not afraid to destroy all the stereotypes of cosmetics. Usually you think of cosmetics and these pristine tubes and bottles, but that's not true with Lush. They are strong advocates for ethical buying. They have very pure handmade products. They're social and corporate responsible, and they avoid being overly luxurious. They don't want that, hey, we're out of your league brand type of feel. Their branding is very simple and sincere. If you look at the photo, most of their branding is on chalkboards or on boards that appear like chalkboards. So it's very simple and high contrast. And they have this massive cult following. And I'm a recent and avid convert myself. And most of their following are also advocates. They're booming and they're growing through word of mouth more so than actual advertising, and that's due to their branding. Their word of mouth is just absolutely off the charts. The woman here I work with told me about the brand, and I actually lost count of how many people I've told about it. Their perceived competitors are Sephora, Balm Cosmetics, and Etsy. And I say perceived because there's no brand out there like them. They're very distinctive. So these are the closest ones. The next one we're going to look at is Airstream. They make trailers. They've been around since 1929, and they've reinvented themselves several times. But their focus is on quality, image, and actual community, building a community around their brand. And their trailers are very expensive relative to others, and they very rarely decrease in value. That's a picture of one. It looks very retro. This is actually a brand new one, but it looks like something from like the 30s. And they recently relaunched a new website and entire digital experience. That happened about 2 years ago. They're very classic, they're understated, but they offer some really upscale amenities. Their product represents, I like to call it quiet money. You don't realize how expensive they really are. I mean, this looks like a very simple exterior, even though it's chrome. But until you peek inside and you've got granite, you've got wood, you've got leather. It's very plush. And they have a lot of community and dealership events where you can actually go and sit in your Airstream and experience the opulence for yourself. They have kind of a cool tagline, too. Their tagline is "Live Riveted," and it's kind of twofold. It's paying homage to the old-style Airstream that was actually riveted on the outside, and live riveted, live engaged, live excited. So it's kind of a cool tagline. They're perceived competitors because, again, there's no one out there like them, is Winnebago, Fleetwood, and Jayco, if you want to check them out. And then the last one I want to show you is T-Mobile. And T-Mobile, their brand message is they're kind of the uncellular cellular company. They cater to a very small, well, not very small, but a smaller than their competitors, kind of a niche audience of young, urban, and when I say urban, I'm talking, you know, kind of hip and you know how young people are, the hipsters. So they don't want to be tied to any cellular company. So they don't want to be tied into a 2-year contract. They want to be able to pick up and leave when they want to without any monetary obligation. So T-Mobile is listening and following their core customers. They understand their audience. They're creating a very lively message that's directed at their customers' biggest pain point, and that's not wanting to be tied down. They're diverting attention from their smaller network. They have one of the smallest networks in the cellular business, but if you look at some of their events, which you're looking at now, you'll never know it. They look huge, but at their events, if you look at their actual marketing, they're very understated. They went really uncorporate with their color palette, too. It's pink. I mean, what other corporation out there, especially in the telecommunications business, has pink? I can't think of any. And obviously, their customers are very happy with them. So there's no termination fees, and that's one of the biggest hurdles with their competitors in switching carriers. They will pay your termination fees if you're with AT&T or Verizon. And also, they allow their customers to bring in unlocked phones, which AT&T and Verizon, their perceived competitors, don't allow. So, and an unlocked phone is just simply a phone that is not attached to a carrier. It's like a pay-as-you-go phone. So we realize branding is important, but how is it different from marketing? So most people, you mentioned branding, it's like marketing, right? No, it's not. It's not. But they do work closely together. Most business owners, they understand that branding is important, but a surprising number don't realize how important it is, and they also don't realize why it's important, and they sometimes confuse branding with marketing. So just to clarify, your brand, you have to brand before you have any marketing effort. Marketing simply informs and promotes that brand, but however, without that brand, there's nothing to market. So branding is super important. It's basically the heart of your business. And branding defines your business to yourself. It defines your business to your team, and it also defines your business, most importantly, to your external audiences. So what does it do exactly? Branding isn't just the voice of your company, meaning it's not just a push message. Branding is the voice of your company, but it's also the voice of your staff. It's the voice of your customers. It's the voice of your audience. And that's because branding is bigger than it used to be. It used to be print. You might be in the yellow pages. You might be on a billboard somewhere. You might be on television. But now branding has become social with social media. There are review sites, and there's just a multitude of channels that are interactive. So branding is much bigger than it used to be, and it's informed by more voices. So it's not just your voice and what you think your brand is, it's actually what your customers think your brand is and what your staff says it is. And all of those voices together make up your brand. Marketing might convince you to make that first purchase. It might convince you to buy your first Harley. However, branding is what determines whether you're a customer for life or not. And why is that? Well, branding is the core promise to your customers. When you brand your business, you're making a promise to your customer. It represents your business divisions and what those values stand for. Like Ford's brand promise for their truck division, built Ford tough. That's their brand promise, and that's what they live up to. I mean, how many people drive down the road and you see this ancient F-150 chugging along, and it looks like heck, but it's still going. It's tough. So Ford has actually delivered on that brand promise. Today's customers, they also want to feel a connection to your brand emotionally, and that's because it's social now. So they want to believe that they share the same values with you, the same beliefs. They want to do business with people who think like them. So your brand has the power to negatively, but hopefully positively, affect your audience and make them happy and want to come back to you. Branding also differentiates you from your competitors. Burger King and McDonald's, they basically offer that same core product of a burger and fries. Their branding, however, will be one of the determining factors on which door you choose to go into. So which one did a better job branding themselves? And I'll leave that decision up to you. But branding also leads to brand loyalty and advocacy. The Harvard Business Review says that customer loyalty is the single most important driver of growth and profitability. And this guy obviously loves his Rolexes. He loves it so much that he had it tattooed on his wrist. And that's kind of the same brand advocacy of the first guy you saw on my first slide wearing the Real Green System sunglasses and with the two thumbs up. That's the kind of advocacy you can build with the proper branding. Another thing that branding will do for you is it gives you price protection, meaning that when your competitors are discounting to drive sales, you won't necessarily have to because your brand will be perceived as providing high quality services and are worth the extra price. So, I mean, when was the last time you saw Mercedes or Nintendo, Apple, or even Starbucks lower their prices? I can't remember that ever happening. It's always been on the upside, and their sales really haven't hurt because of it. Branding will also make it easier for you to grow your business into other markets and territories, and that's because your good name is going to pave the way for you. Going back to social networks and just the socialization of branding now, your good name is going to precede you, hopefully, into these new territories and markets and make it easier for you to expand. So this is what you all tuned in for. How do you create your brand? And usually when I help companies brand themselves, I have maybe sometimes a 4-hour conversation with them on what they want their brand to be, who they want to aim their brand at. So first defining what your brand is. Who are you? What are you offering? Build your brand. Then you have to drive your brand. Aim it, speak it, repeat it, distinguish it, innovate it, consider it, and flow it. So let's go through all of these. Once I didn't switch the slide, sorry about that. Anyway, let's go through all 10 of these. The first one is define your brand. So first of all, you have to decide what products and services you're offering. And when you start thinking in terms of branding, that might change. You might look at some things and say, you know, I really don't want to offer this anymore. I don't want to sell this anymore. I want to concentrate in this area. So that's kind of the process you go through under this question. So if you're mowing and you're not really making a lot of money at it and it's a lot of work, you know, you might want to cut that out of your business and concentrate on spraying, for instance. Who are your competitors? And what are they doing? Who's ahead of you and who's behind you in the market? Who's making more sales and has more customers, and who's coming up behind you, and what are they doing? And decide where you want to be positioned in that pack. Do you want to be the leader of the pack, or are you content in the middle with sort of a niche community? Then you need to look at who's in your customer community. Who are your current customers? What do they look like? Are they families in single-family homes? Are they commercial? You know, what's their income level? What are their buying habits? What does that customer look like? And then who are your potential customers? Who are the customers you really want? And what do they look like? What are their buying habits? Where do they live? Just what do they look like demographically? When you're defining your brand, you're going to start defining your brand's character. And this ties into the next step, but you need to think of what type of brand you want to be. What's your character? And when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're not copying someone else's brand. That's why I'm not showing a lot of lawn care, because I don't want you to start copying other people's brands. You need to start thinking uniquely about yours and who you stand for and what you stand for. Customers and prospective customers are going to pick up if you start copying someone else's brand, and they're going to think you're the knockoff Rolex that they could get, you know, down the street instead of in a fine jewelry store. And it's just not a good practice, because if that brand catches you copying them, there are going to be some issues. There are about 12 different brand personalities that you can choose from. A couple of them are like the regular guy, like you see here. The regular guy is like, I'm here to help. I'm friendly. I'm going to be here. I'm dependable. There's the hero brand, like, I'm coming to save your lawn. You don't need anybody else. And it's kind of like Superman swooping in to solve all the lawn care problems. And there are about 10 others. I do have a handout, and Katie can distribute that. I think she's going to be distributing things tomorrow. But there are 12 different types of personalities you can give your business, which leads us to 2, building your brand. And that's when you start thinking of your brand. I like to think of a brand as a person. And what are your brand's beliefs, your values, the purpose? And these are the very things that define us as people and cause us to connect with each other. So look at your brand and realize that it's looking for people to connect with. So you're going to create a personality for your brand. It's like Frankenstein building a person. So now you're going to drive your brand. And what does that mean? That means you're going to start creating the community for your brand. So you have to just establish what your brand believes in, what's its purpose, what's its personality, and where does it fit in. So you're going to decide where you want your brand to fit into the community you're creating for it. And the personality is going to help establish the emotive brand position. So we talked about feelings, how your brand's going to make people feel. And it helps to identify the character for all of your brand communications. The character meaning the voice. How are you going to talk to the people in your brand community? Just like Harley Davidson, their brand personality, they started out appealing to bad boys, people who wanted a little daring and adventure, and people who wanted to live on their own terms. I know in a number of movies, Brando rode a Harley. And it's appealing to young, it's appealing to the old, and it's appealing to every life stage in between. So you're going to develop a personality that will speak to the people you want to attract as customers. Harley wanted that, you know, kind of tough type of person, and, you know, that's kind of evolved now because, you know, the brand has evolved. But think about the people you want to attract and start building a personality to do that. Number 4, you're going to aim your brand. So aiming your brand is targeting it. You're going to target your market. You're going to keep the, you're going to set some realistic expectations for your brand. You want to avoid over-promising to get customers, saying that you can do something that you really can't, because in the long run that's going to hurt the brand, because you want to start creating trust and honesty in your branding. So you have to be very clear who your customer is and what your products are, and stay true to that. I ended with this Audi logo because they did some serious damage to their brand. They made a brand promise with their diesel vehicles that they were very environmentally friendly, and they basically lied about that. And their sales really fell because of that, and they're struggling to regain their market. So it's very important to not overpromise, and it's very important to be honest when you start branding your company. Next, we want to speak our brand. We want to reinforce your business's brand and your brand's character. You want to clarify what you offer to customers, and you want your customers to know exactly what to expect. Excuse me. You also want to communicate your brand's message to your staff so that your message is consistent everywhere. I know here we run some lobby displays in our 3 buildings, and we have our core brand values on that display. We also have any product announcements. We have our currently running ads, and that's so everyone in the company can see our brand promise, and see all of our brand messages. And that way, we're kind of training our entire company to be well-educated brand advocates. So they know our brands, they know our brand promise, they know the brand promise for all of our products, and they can go out and speak about this with authority. And in turn, they can educate our customers, who can in turn educate who they speak to about our brand. The next is to repeat your brand, and that's just getting your message out there in a consistent way. So you don't want to repeat your message the exact same way every time, because it's going to get boring and people are going to tune out. But you do want to think of ways to convey the same message so that it sounds fresh each time, so you don't lose the meaning of your message. A company that does this very well and has been doing it for an extremely long time is Chevrolet. They have been repeating the same 3 brand promises since 1914. Their brand promises back then and today are affordability, dependability, and nationality. And in one of their earliest newspaper ads, Chevrolet was talking about their enormous buying power and unprecedented efficiency in manufacturing allowed them to offer substantial financial savings to their customers. So they were already talking about affordability when they first started back in 1910. Around 1919, when they hired Campbell Ewald for their first Chevy project, they had an all-text ad, and it appeared in 45 newspapers, and it says, Chevrolet meets completely the national need for dependable and economical transportation. The first cost is low, the upkeep is never a burden. So there you have, it's affordable. You have the affordability. They're appealing to the national need, and dependability. The first cost is low, the upkeep is never a burden, meaning you never really have to upkeep it, or if you do, it's just some little trivial things that go wrong with it. Number 7, you want to distinguish your brand. So you don't want to mimic any big franchises. You don't want to mimic any brands that are out there already. You want to carve out your own unique identity. You want to be original, you want to be authentic, you want to be honest. There are a huge consumer trends towards independent establishments. We talked about that earlier. Big companies wanting to seem smaller. Most lawn care companies, unless you're a big franchise or affiliated with a franchise, you meet that category. You're an independent company, and you really need to capitalize on that by carving your own identity, your own brand identity. Consumers want to trust you, and they will that first time. This is where the honesty comes in. You have to prove that they can trust you all of the time. So if you start copying someone else's brand, that's kind of a key in somebody's mind that, if they're copying, are they really who they say they are? Next, you want to innovate your brand. And that means staying agile, daring to be different. I showed you a few larger brands that, have some kind of cool things going on with them. Large brands tend to be bogged down with layers of bureaucracy, so that keeps them from being as agile as maybe our lawn care people can be. This makes them very cautious in their branding. Now, I'm not saying throw caution to the wind, but be daring, dare to be different and look different. When you're doing that, however, I encourage you to look at your brand from all angles. Something that might sound really funny or clever to you may be very offensive to a large sector of your market. And I'll use for that example Taco Bell, the Taco Bell dog. It was a very innovative campaign. It was funny. People engaged with it. But there was a sector of their market that found it highly offensive, and they never considered that. So look at it from all angles and put yourself in your demographic's shoes. Are they going to find it funny? Are they going to find it innovative? Or are they going to find it offensive? Number 9 is consider your brand. And I really should say be considerate of your brand. Never lose pride in your brand or dilute your brand positioning with indiscriminate discounting. It's very tempting to say, your sales are a little slow and you're just going to start slashing prices. That's not always a good idea. And yeah, you might gain some new sales, but you're also discounting your brand at the same time. It's better to offer more rather than slash your price. Promotions are a prime opportunity to reinforce your brand's mission, remind people that you offer a particular product or service. Some people may forget that you offer aeration, for example, and don't discount it. Just say, hey, if you aerate, then all of the chemicals or all of the nutrients that we're spraying onto your lawn will saturate down to the roots, and you'll get more benefit from the other service that you're already purchasing from us. You don't have to discount it. Just remind them that the two go hand in hand. I use, for an example here, Adobe. Adobe has really never discounted themselves. What they do is offer you more. They offer you packages where you can buy Photoshop and Illustrator, or Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign, those of you who are familiar with Adobe products. But they never discount. They just show you different creative ways to basically purchase their products. And now we're going to flow our brand. We have our brand ready, and we're going to launch it. So branding is very fluid now. It's not just print. It's not just television. It's everywhere. It's on social media. It's basically your friends promote different brands. Dove does a very excellent job with this campaign. It's an I Am Beautiful campaign, and it's been around for 2 or 3 years now. They're not selling Dove soap with this campaign. They're telling a story. They're telling actual other people's stories. People are telling the story for them. I am beautiful because I'm happy with who I am inside and out. They have a series of people who are tall, short, thin, heavy. It doesn't matter. They're all telling why they think they're beautiful. And it's just sponsored by Dove. Subliminally, you're looking at it and thinking, oh, if I use Dove soap, I'm going to be beautiful, and I'm going to be happy with who I am inside and out. So think of a story you want to tell with your lawn care. My lawn looks, my customer, pick your customers maybe, and, hey, my lawn, I love my lawn now. I love walking barefoot through my lawn. Branding is kind of like a flirtation with people. You want to generate some intrigue and interest and allow your audience to unearth more about your brand for themselves. All of your messages need to kind of work together and tell a story. So they need to be a little bit different on social media because you're talking to the audience as a person versus your print advertising where you're kind of talking at your audience versus your website and any other channels you happen to position your brand on. But what this does is start building brand ambassadors because people love telling your story, but you have to tell them what story to tell. So that's really quickly the 10 steps to branding. I just wanted to really quickly show you a couple of lawn care companies that have been rebranded using kind of that 10-step conversation. It's not really a question form. It's just like I said, it's a 2 to 4 hour conversation. The first one is McMaster Pest Services, and they actually did lawn care, but they had kind of limited their brand on the left to pest services, and they wanted to actually branch out into more upscale communities, which this brand really wasn't working for them anymore. So we rebranded them McMaster's Lawn and Pest Services, and we gave them a tagline: trust the name, love the results. And actually, this brand, the new brand, they were putting vinyl on their trucks, and they hadn't even finished. They had just the McMaster Lawn and Pest Services logo on their truck, and they started actually getting orders and new customers just based on the new logo. The next one we did was Buffalo Lawn and Landscape, and I don't have their old logo, but it looked sort of like a silver belt buckle, and it was really kind of hard to read and hard to distinguish what it was. But we rebranded them and once again gave them a tagline: making Western New York, you would think they were out west, but they're not, they're in New York, greener one lawn at a time. And that brand's actually working out quite well for them. It's a little off kilter, it's a little out of the ordinary. You wouldn't expect to see a buffalo roaming through upstate New York, but this brand is working for them because it's catching people's eye. And finally, we're going to talk about how do you determine your brand's equity. And this is kind of a dry subject, and I apologize for that. But let's first tell you what brand equity is. Brand equity, according to Investopedia, is the value premium that a company realizes from a product with a recognizable name as compared to its generic equivalent. Companies can create brand equity for their products by making them memorable, easily recognizable, and superior in quality and reliability. One of the prime examples for brand equity is the medical industry and the recognizable name brand drugs versus their generic equivalent. Or if you go into a supermarket, you're going to see name brand like Wonder Bread next to generic. Brand equity is one of the few business assets that can provide a sustainable competitive advantage to your business. Simply put, your company's good name is everything. Think about McDonald's. Think about their brand equity. Typically, when you sell a lawn care business, you're going to value your customer list. You're going to value your equipment. You'll value your products on hand, your building if you're selling it, your vehicle. Don't forget to value your brand. Typically, business owners fail to include the value of their brand, and that's the goodwill that they've built with their customers, their name recognition, their great reviews, any positive social chatter that's going on, the perception that their products and services have. That these all contribute to the value of your brand, and they can drive the value of your business. An example of that is the auto industry. We have 3 different brands here. We have the Chevy Equinox, the Buick Encore, and the Cadillac SRX. The Chevy comes in at a base price of $22,600, Encore $24,000, and the Cadillac $37,600. But if you look at the pictures, they're all the same vehicle. They all have the same roof line. They all have the same tail end, the same front end. The only differences are some of the dimpling on the sides. Maybe the shape of the windows are a little different. But they actually share 85% of their components. Certain of the cosmetic and luxury amenities will differ. But the main thing that's driving the price is the brand perception. Industry experts believe that brand perception makes up 10% of a vehicle's retail value. And I think that extends beyond vehicles. I think it extends to lawn care services, pest control. I mean, that brand perception gives you an extra 10% that you can add to your price. So how do you determine it? There's 3 basic approaches to valuing your brand equity. They're cost-based, market-based, and income-based. The cost-based is basically how much did you pay for your brand. It's the cost-based valuation requires you to evaluate the cost of your brand and restating actual expenditures in current cost terms. The same method can be used if you relaunch your business. So what does that really mean? It means what went into your brand. How much did you pay for advertising throughout the history of your brand? Any promotion expenditures? Was there a cost for creating campaigns? Did you pay a marketing company to create your logo, to create campaigns for you? Was there any licensing involved? Did you trademark your logo? Did you trademark any taglines that you had? Or any registration costs that are affiliated with your brand? All that together is the cost of your brand, and that's basically what your brand is worth. There's a market-based brand valuation, and this brand valuation uses one or more valuation methods by comparing similar brands which have sold. So a similar lawn care company to yours in size, and how much did that brand sell for? You would use comparable market transactions like the specific sale of a brand, comparable company transactions, and or stock market quotations. Think of it like this. Market-based brand valuation is what your brand can be sold for. How much can you get for it? The market-based method is transaction price-based. And then you have the income brand valuation. And this method is referred to as the in-use approach. It considers the valuation of future net earnings that can be directly attributed to the brand to determine the value of the brand in its current use. So basically it's a profit loss statement, cash flows, cost savings actually or hypothetically due to the asset or the brand. That's basically branding in a nutshell. Branding is very subjective, and it's something that you can't really just fill out a form to do. it's a conversation. And I'm going to admit that I have never put this down on paper, and it was really hard to kind of document the conversations that I have with people. But I hope I did a fairly good job in summarizing that conversation and getting you thinking about your brand and possibly even rebranding your company. So that's all I have. Are there any questions?
If you guys have any questions, in the question box at the bottom, you'll be able to put them in and we'll see them. So for me, that was an awesome presentation. I would say my top two, key takeaways when I attend a webinar, when I go to Real Green events, for example, there's always so much information that I try and write down my 1, 2, or 3 takeaways that I'm going to put into practice now. And I would say the 2 concepts you mentioned, Linda, for me would be around this whole character of a brand and how that translates into an emotional connection. For me, that was for some reason, it just clicked for me right there. And
well,
then,
I think,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you keep going.
No, I'm glad you picked up on that, because a lot of people don't, they are connecting to brands emotionally. And that's kind of the way we're taking the Real Green brand. We want people to feel something when they see the brand. When we want them to feel, that we're helpful, that we're here for more than just selling software and marketing services, that we actually care. And that happens when you start humanizing the brand. And I think Holganix is doing an awesome job with doing that as well. You're there to help people through these webinars and various other events and functions that you have. And I think that's so important, to actually connect and think of your audience as people and not just demographics.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. We certainly try. There's definitely room for improvement there. But thank you very much. We have a couple questions. So from Sam, you might have said it and I missed it, but how can you measure if your current brand is working? That's a good question.
That is a good question, and that could be an entire presentation on its own.
Right? I would love to know more about that, that's for sure.
Well, there's so many ways you can gauge whether your brand is working, and I guess for us here at Real Green, we know our brand is working when people show up at our events. We know it's working when people engage with us on social media. I know the first thing I do when I get in the morning, and actually I have alerts coming to my phone 24/7, comments when people try to engage with you. That means your brand is saying something to them. It's making them reach out to you. So I guess as long as people are reaching out to you and connecting with you, and it's the people you want as a customer, your brand's working. Now, if people are reaching out to you to say you suck, then you might want to rethink your branding.
Excellent answer. Richard wants to know, are we getting the presentation slides emailed to us? And that's up to you. I don't know.
Certainly, I can package this up as a PDF and send it to you, Katie.
Yeah,
I don't mind sharing.
Tomorrow for you guys. Along with sorry.
I'm sorry?
No, you go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, along with that, the 12 characters for your brand. I think that's an important part of this. I didn't get a chance to go through them all, but it's important to develop a character for your brand or a personality for your brand.
Definitely. And I'll also send out the recording for this if you guys want to share it with your team. I know this is probably, a lot of you guys are, one person from your company's watching this, but I feel like this would be an excellent conversation to have across the company.
Most definitely, especially for emerging brands or brand new ones. I just kind of pardon that one, but new companies who are just establishing their brand. now's the time, if you haven't thought of your brand voice, if you haven't thought how you're going to engage with your customer, if you haven't thought about the emotional reactions you want to elicit from your customers, now's the time to really have that conversation. And if you're an established brand, are you getting the reactions you want?
Mm-hmm.
Are people reaching out to you? Do they feel comfortable reaching out to you and asking questions online or through social media? And all that has to do with your brand's voice.
Definitely. And speaking of social media and brand voice, Sam asked, how often should you post on social media channels?
That's kind of up to your audience and kind of up to what your brand has to say. I know sometimes here at Real Green, we'll post every day, but then we'll, kind of go for a week or two because we just don't really have anything to say. But I noticed during that week or two lull, that's when we start getting comments. That's when people start reaching back out to us. So it's, I guess gauge your audience and gauge what you have to say. We kind of changed our social media strategy in the last year or so. We were just posting, all fun stuff, but we started posting actual meaningful information for people. Mm-hmm. Tips about branding, tips about marketing, tips about growing your business. We still post the fun stuff, when we're out at shows and things, or when somebody has a baby, or, we still humanize the brand that way. But I find that we're more effective now that we're posting when we just have something relevant to say.
Any other questions, guys? I'm curious from our audience, how many of you guys are either you already have brands and now you're looking at kind of revamping them, or you're starting out fresh?
That is a good question.
Yeah. If you guys could answer in that chat or that question panel so we can see. Let us know if you're starting off fresh or you're looking to revamp. I guess people just don't know. All right, George says we have a brand. Oh, here we go. Now there's lots of people. Just created a logo. Oh, this is from Cheryl. I've met you in the past. So no tagline yet. 3 years into a purchasing existing company. Started in January. 1.5 years. Trying to make our own. Wow, there's like so many different answers here.
Grass nerds, I like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is an awesome name.
Thanks. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. Focusing on gaining. Awesome.
Is there any other questions, guys? I mean, I'd really take advantage of having Linda here if I were you, because it's not every day we get to have access to someone with such experience. Let's see. Time to drive our brand. Yep, you heard it. You said it. All right. How important is the tagline?
Well, the tagline kind of informs your brand. Let's go back a little bit and let's see here. Let's go back. The tagline, if you have one, it's great. It kind of tells, it's more of a brand promise. In the case of McMaster's, trust the name, love the results. They're telling you they're trustworthy, and they're telling you that they're going to do a good job for you, and they're going to make your lawn beautiful, and they're going to, their pest services, it's going to be pest free. You can get out and enjoy it. So if you're going to have one, have a well thought out one. Don't just throw one together. Make it tie back into your brand promise. And it can be very powerful. The trust the name, love the results can almost stand on its own. This next one for Buffalo Lawn Care, Buffalo Lawn and Landscape, I'm sorry, making Western New York greener. That's what they do. They're just a spraying company, and that's all they do is make your lawn green and weed free, one lawn at a time. So, I mean, that's their brand promise to you. Your lawn's going to be greener. You're going to be one of those lawns. So it is important, and it's important to think it out and tie it into your brand promise. I hope that answered.
Awesome. Any other questions, guys? Hey, what should they do, Linda? Like I was saying earlier, you presented such tons of awesome information. If they had to go home, or they're at home, or they're in the office, they had to go back to their desk right now and do one thing today to start working on their brand, what should it be?
If you're starting to, I would go home and actually, let's see, that's a good question. That is a very good question.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Put me on the spot. You did. Mark this day on the calendar. I would actually go back to those first questions under defining the brand. What products and services? What's your core offering? I would go back and look at the competition, and I mean, how often do you really do that? I don't know, but who is ahead of you? Who's behind you? And start thinking about your customers. Who are the customers you already have, and think about the customers you want to have. Do you actually have the customers you want, or are you afraid to go out and get them, or is your brand maybe not the right brand to go get them? So I would maybe just do a kind of a soul searching, and is your brand actually doing what you want it to do?
Awesome advice.
And if not, make a decision to change it.
All right, guys. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, we'll close out. All right. Well, Linda, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. It was awesome having you on, not only because I got to learn quite a lot myself, but I'm sure you've taught our audience a thing or two as well. Guys, tomorrow I'll be sending out that email I promised with the recording, the slideshow, and the handout we mentioned earlier as well. If you have any other questions, at the end of this webinar, there's a survey that's going to pop up, and it'll ask you, hey, if you have any questions for Linda, put them here, and I'll forward them over to her.
Awesome, Katie. Thank you so much for having me, and everybody, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to me ramble.